Nature Boy Ric Flair, baby. Woo, woo, woo. Limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun that can kiss any woman, even that fat one, and make her cry. You know, the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm going to World's End in December, and I'm gonna go to the World's End show, and then I'm also gonna go to Old Space Mountain itself. I'm gonna spend a day in Disney World, you know, so that's gonna be a hell of a lot of fun, baby. Woo, woo! So that's why I'm excited. I'm going to talk about the Full Gear card, and I think Full Gear is definitely going to be one of these pay-per-views that definitely you have to really think about, you know, what AEW needs to achieve. They need to have a banger of the show because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be actually at this show for a few reasons. Now, this is definitely, you know, Thanksgiving Day weekend, and definitely the other part of this show is really that, you know, you gotta send people strong. You gotta give the audience a very strong card because obviously Full Gear is one of their big four pay-per-view. So, you know, without further ado, I want to give you guys my fantasy booking, and I'll talk about each of the matches as I go along. The first match is Adam Page versus Jay White, and the winner of this match gets a AEW championship shot at World's End. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want Adam Page to actually win this match. And I want him to challenge Jon Moxley at World's End. And the reason why you do that is because Adam Page was in charge of the Dark Order, and he doesn't realize that he does have a bunch of friends around him. So you need like this type of ass kicker type of person, really. And I also think that, you know, honestly, when you think of a good world champion, you need that Adam Page is actually a really good option. You know, he can face big people, he can face small people. He burned down Swerve's house, really. So wouldn't that make sense for somebody like that to take on the Moxley faction, really? So I think that it should be, it should be like a, you know, number one contendership match. But I think that Adam Page versus Moxley would be something that people would pay money for, not Darby Allin versus Moxley. And then, as we said before, that the problem is that you would have Darby Allin versus Brody King and other big people. So that wouldn't be a good look, really. But if you have like Adam Page versus like a Bobby Lashley, you know, this ruthless, never give up type of violent fighter, really, that would work better. So I really think that they need to just add the number one contendership stipulation to get people excited. And then it's going to be Adam Page versus Jon Moxley at World's End. The next match I would have is Private Party versus Brian Cage and Lance Archer. That this week, what I want to see is actually Private Party win the tag team titles. And there's a couple of reasons why I want to do this. They're actually talking about Jack Perry turning heel and joining the Moxley faction. So you can set this up this week. And then the other thing about it is that with Private Party, you know, there could be something where the Moxley faction talks to them and says, like, you know what, because Jon Moxley wants wrestlers to step up, really. He says, like, you know what, I'm seeing what you guys have been doing, really, you know, so definitely give us some thought, really, you know, in addition to MVP. And then MVP can, like, talk to them and be like, you know what, you know, you guys can join my group, really, you know, because he's starting, like, an all-black faction, really. So there could be, like, if they win, there could be some conversations. But the other reason why you do this is because the Don Callis faction, they want to be belt collectors. And I honestly think for a very, very long time, they've not been belt collectors. So that would set up a babyface versus a heel group. You have Private Party versus Brian Cage and Lance Archer. And then it can go in any directions. You can have Isaiah Cassidy portray his partner, or you can do something where, you know, Brian Cage and Lance Archer win easily because, you know, you have to establish big men. And then the other thing is that, you know, you have the heel and babyface dynamic. But also, as I said, that one big thing AEW needs to do is that I think that every title, you know, in all their AEW titles, there needs to be one big man winning a title and defending it, because you can't have somebody like Orange Cassidy hold a heavyweight title or another title, and then you have Jack Perry and other like small people, because it's like, you know, what about Brian Cage? What about Powerhouse Hobbs? What about Miro, Keith Lee? So it makes sense to do it like this. Like I would honestly, I would have Cage and Archer win this. The next match that I have, and this doesn't necessarily need to be on the show, I would have Top Flight versus the Moxley faction for the trios titles, because you need to establish how dominant the Moxley faction are. So I think them and Top Flight would be a great match. Top Flight has a lot of momentum right now. They're talking. They have like a lot of drive. They have a lot of like, you know what, getting fired up, really. So I think you need to reward that. So I think like Top Flight versus the Moxley faction would be a great match. But I also put in my notes that they can save this for television because I have a really great main event for this show. So this is what I would do. That I would just say that could be an idea. The next match that you can have that could be saved for television would honestly be Chris Jericho versus Tomohiro Ishii. There's a couple of reasons why I want to do this. That obviously when you looked at Mark Briscoe, he was defending the ROH championship on many pay-per-views. So on many like Ring of Honor pay-per-views. They don't have a Ring of Honor pay-per-view coming up anytime soon. And I don't think they will have that for a while because they need to kind of rebrand, Ring of Honor. So one thing that Chris Jericho can do is really just be like, okay, until then, I want to advertise Ring of Honor. So the Ring of Honor pay-per-views can be defended on all AEW pay-per-views because Chris Jericho has that sensitive ego. So with that said, I would have Chris Jericho versus Tomohiro Ishii defend the Ring of Honor title. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I just had to close my window because they're doing some leaf blowing outside. So, like I've said, that one thing you have to do is with the ROH title on the World Championship, I have no problem with Chris Jericho defending it every pay-per-view. And the reason why I would do that is because obviously people would not like this. This makes Chris Jericho a really great heel. And what I actually want to do is Chris Jericho versus Dustin Rhodes for the ROH Championship at All In, and then he becomes the ROH champion. A lot of people would like that. But I think that what you can also do is you can have people on the Ring of Honor show just actually work hard, do a great job, get a bunch of victories. And then you take all the men really that are doing that and you say, okay, I want to go after Chris Jericho's title. So what would happen if you have Dalton Castle do that at a pay-per-view? What would happen if you have Mark Briscoe do another rematch? What would happen if you take, like a few other people on the Ring of Honor roster and you do that? I don't even remember any of those guys, but it actually sets up a great type of dynamic, like Chris Jericho, you face Chris Jericho, and then obviously it's big if you face Chris Jericho at a pay-per-view. So I think for that, since they're setting up him and Tomohiro Ishii, why not just do that? And I think that's great direction. The next match I want to have is Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs versus LFI for the 6-man Ring of Honor titles. And the reason why I want to do this is that I'm a big fan of when you have a title, you have to defend that title and you have to have a story with it and you have to go somewhere. If you do not do that, then you need to lose your title, really. So with Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs, I've not watched Ring of Honor. They said that the ratings have went up a little bit because of Dustin Rhodes, but I don't see Dustin Rhodes on Collision facing 6-man teams and whatever. And then also you need to make LFI a big deal, really. So why not kind of give them the 6-man titles? Since Dustin and the Von Erichs, since they're not really doing anything, since I don't really see any like hype for Ring of Honor or whatever, it just makes sense to switch the titles, really. And then also too, this is good because Roosh and Mordos have been doing a great job, really. So you need to kind of do something where you have to kind of reward that because people like Mordos is going to fall into that, silly big man type of role, really. So you have to do something where you kind of take him to the next level, really. Put a title on him. And then if you do that, what you can do is you can have Jake the Snake Roberts. And then also you can have Kevin Von Erich do ring announcing. Special ring announcers with Jim Ross. That would actually be really great. You bring in 2 people who are in their 70s and they may pass away soon. You give them an opportunity. They're actually in the New York area. So, why not do that? That would be a really great match. The next match I'll have is Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. This will be a first blood match. They use a screwdriver, and this would make a lot of sense, And then also with Will Ospreay, definitely, he should be wrestling a more hardcore type of style. They can incorporate some of those elements. So just to give you something a little different than a gymnastics show. So I think Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher first blood match, I think that would be good. They can incorporate, some of their, the mix of the Will Ospreay style, but also a bit of a hardcore brawler style. They can kind of like show something a little different by presenting Ospreay with both those elements, like a brawler, hardcore, and a flip wrestler. I think they can go somewhere with that. So that's what I would do. Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher first blood match. Swerve Strickland versus Bobby Lashley. That needs to happen at the pay-per-view because that's going to be good storytelling direction. You bring somebody like Bobby Lashley for a pay-per-view. He beat Shelton Benjamin this week. Bobby Lashley debuts tonight. At October 30th at the Fright Night show, and then you set up Lashley versus or Strickland at the pay-per-view. That'll be really great. The next match I would have is Marina Shafir Open Challenge. And the reason why I want to do this is that Marina Shafir is part of the Moxley faction. So you have to do something where you show her as a dominant woman. And then also, too, if you're going to have the Moxley faction, you need to have Team AEW have a woman on board, really. So what I would do is I would have Nyla Rose. Because the thing about Nyla Rose is a really great talker. And Nyla Rose is somebody that I feel is trying to find her place in AEW, really. So you have somebody with a lot of personalities, somebody who can talk, somebody who's a badass. And then actually, if she wins, what happens with Nyla Rose is that you can set up where Nyla Rose versus Mercedes Moné Part 2 or Mariah May Part 2, and they have a match at a bigger show like All In. You know, I think that would be a good spot for Nyla Rose. This will be a great match. You're trying to set Marina Shafir as this big, powerful badass. So why not have like another big, powerful, badass type of wrestler? You know, Amazoness versus Amazoness type of thing, really. You know, so that would be a good match. But that's also a match that they can have for a television show, because you also have to be a little careful, because I have like 13, 14 matches on this. So you have to make sure you don't have a show that's going to be like, you know, 6 or 7 hours, really. That's not good. The next match is obviously Takeshita versus Ricochet International Championship. That's going to be a really great banger of a match. It's great. You cannot have Ospreay versus Takeshita right now, because it may be a little, like, repetitive. Adam Cole versus MJF. Obviously, they're going to go in that direction. Adam Cole versus, Roderick Strong versus MJF, or a three-way is not good. It should be MJF versus Adam Cole. You get that, and you guys move on from it. You need to have Jamie Hayter versus Mariah May for the Women's Championship. They're setting that up, really. And then people complain about a lack of women's matches. So you need to kind of really set up Jamie Hayter versus Mariah May. Have that match, have at least 2 women's matches. I think they're going to do Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley. I'm not looking forward to that. Orange Cassidy is a comedy wrestler. But since they're going that direction, you know, just have it. The next match is Okada versus Shelton Benjamin for the Continental Championship. The reason why I want to do this is because Shelton Benjamin has been on television the past couple of weeks, getting a bunch of victories. And, you know, Okada hasn't been really doing much. You know, you're trying to advertise the Continental Championship. So it makes sense for Okada to at least have one title defense to advertise the Continental Championship. So I think they both should have a match, really. They should have, like, a really great match. And this is also good because this shows the audience Shelton Benjamin in a new light, really. Because a lot of people associate him with the WWF. Not a lot of people follow New Japan Pro Wrestling. So just to have Shelton Benjamin wrestle in... AEW with a Japanese wrestler who's considered one of the greatest Japanese wrestlers of all time, I think this would be good. And like I've said, that you really need to advertise Wrestle Dream. So it makes you advertise the Continental Classic tournament. So Okada needs to have a match. So I think him and Shelton Benjamin should be the right match. And I also put in the Outrunners versus FTR. 2 out of 3 falls. But once again, this could be a television match because we're getting close to 15 matches on my fantasy booking. And the reason why I would have that is for a couple of reasons. You want the Outrunners to face a heel tag team at World's End. You know, start the new year with the Outrunners. And then the other thing about the Outrunners that I'm going to say about them is that they really need to be giving promos every single week. They really need to kind of see what the audience is going to do with the Outrunners if they're themselves, where they have a lot of fun, really. But then they also get to a point of just being driven to have the tag team titles. So, you know, you have them have at least 2 matches a week. You know, I think Dynamite, and then you also have a Rampage or a Collision. You do that throughout the year. And then if they have a lot of momentum, people are just losing their minds for these people, then at World's End, you can do Brian Cage and Lance Archer versus the Outrunners. Because you established that the Outrunners can lift big people, really. So I think that would be a really great match. And then you become the champions. And then you can kind of do something where it's the Moxley faction versus the Outrunners at Grand Slam in Australia. That would be the best, you know, that'll be the best thing to do, really. And the main event match that I have is you're going to do a blood and guts match. And the reason why that this needs to happen, and this should happen at the pay-per-view, is that you have the EVPs and you have the Moxley faction both running AEW. And the EVPs need to lose all their power, so therefore we're done with the EVPs. So what I will do is that there's a stipulation. So if the EVPs lose, they lose all their booking power for the rest of their time in AEW. They cannot book matches. They cannot do anything like that. It's going to be directly Tony Khan, or it's going to be a general manager, but it's never going to be the EVPs. They lose all their booking power. And you need to have that because, you know, what are they doing now, really? And the EVP faction has hurt the ratings, so they need to lose all their power. And then the other thing that I want to throw in there is that the Moxley faction says, you know what, I want to try running AEW. So you have John Moxley versus, John Moxley say, you know, if I win, I have power over AEW for a month. I want to try it out, really. So this is what you do. Then you set up at World's End, you set up, okay, whoever, you're going to set up Adam Page versus Moxley, and the winner, you know, has control over AEW. And then you have Shane McMahon as a special guest referee. That would be the best way to do all of that. And then you take it from there, really, because then people don't know. That would be the best way to set it up. But the Moxley faction versus the EVPs in a blood and guts match would be what you do. So this is how I do it. I'll have Darby Allin, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Jack Perry, and Dan Garcia be on team EVP and AEW. They have to combine forces. This would be very, very great to just do all of that. You know, because then you have to get along, really. So I think this would be a great combination of people. And then for the Moxley faction, what I would do is I'd have Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, Wheeler Yuta, and and a surprise member. So then there are going to be two surprises in this. That what happens is that towards the end of the match, when they get weapons, Jack Perry is going to join the Moxley faction, and he's going to betray people. And then he's going to attack the EVPs, and he's going to be established as, you know, it's going to be a 5-on-4, really. And then the person that I want to have as the surprise member is going to be Orange Cassidy. I'm going to turn Orange Cassidy heel because you need to do something with his character. You need to give him a new direction, really. We need to see him as a heel, really. So I think that that'll be the best thing to do, really. So you have a 6-on-4, and that's the end of it. They all get stretchered out, and then it's the Moxley faction. And then you hear a bunch of explosions, and then it's Adam Page, and you know what, he has like the look of hell and whatever, and he's like, you know, and then he cuts a promo at the end talking about how he's going to face John Moxley, and that's going to be the end of the show, really. And then you can do something where Bryan Danielson comes out at the very, very end, or you show like a video promo of maybe eventually you have Adam Page being put over by Bryan Danielson or something like that. But that'll be the way to do it. I think that this would be a great card. It would set up a lot of great directions. And I think that, like, at the end of the year, you really want to show that AEW is going in a very good narrative direction. That's what I think people want, really. So I think in this one, you're getting rid of the EVPs. You're getting rid of all the power that they have because now it's a clusterfuck. You're establishing the Moxley faction as a faction with the power. And then you're also doing it where, you know, as I said, that if you really are bringing Shane McMahon, you really need to have the Moxley faction be teased that they're going to have all the power in AEW, and then actually take that away from people. So I really think that, you know, this card is the best that they can do, really. So I really, really just hope that, honestly, you know, that AEW can kind of really think about where they're going with the pay-per-view. And I think with some of these things right here, you can put it on television as well, really, you know. So I really think that, you know, Tony Khan needs to, you know, give me some money, and he needs to hire me as a creative booker, because this is a really great pay-per-view card. I thought about this in 40 minutes when I was at work, you know. So definitely this is like the card that's going to sell the Prudential Center, sell out World's End, and it's going to lead us into 2025 with a great AEW.